Welcome back. You're watching South Africa Tonight here on eNCA, and we continue our conversation with Electricity Minister, Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. You touched on an issue just before the break about geysers, and I know that there is an active plan to try and solve this issue around geysers, because many households don't switch their geysers on and off. Many don't see the need in doing that. What is the plan, and why is it so important to have South Africans not have their geysers on throughout the whole day?
I think before the break, you make the point that a lot of people are aggrieved about the proposal.
Yes, I want hot water all the time.
Exactly, and I was coming to that point. The key is for you to have hot water as and when you need it. It's not for the geyser to be on all the time. And I did say that it consumes a lot of electricity. And you are going to see also the impact on the bottom line. I'm assuming that municipalities don't make estimates when they charge you for if you like, your electricity bill. You are going to see that there's a significant savings as a result of that. But there's a bigger picture before us. So what is that bigger picture? We did say that the economy is on its knees. Businesses are closing, risk to life, risk to, if you like, our ability to be able to meet our daily needs. Businesses are finding it very difficult to produce at the rate that they desire. There's high inflationary pressures as a result of increased cost on the input side, primary production, also across the entire value chain, and it's the poor that are feeling this impact. And we're able to illustrate that a mere exercise of ensuring that as and when you don't use your geysers, we switch them off. We can save up to 3.5 gigawatts. And what we set ourselves as a target is that we want to go a minimum of 1,000 megawatts. That's one stage of load shedding. As I speak to you, we are at stage 2. So if we would have done that, we are able to save about one stage of load shedding. And of course, the kind of technology that we have, it allows you that you can remotely, if you like, control your geysers for purposes of making a contribution to the resolution of the energy crisis now, but going into the future, ensuring that there's greater levels of resilience that are built into the grid, but also to ensure that we achieve energy sovereignty. We're able to use as much as we need and not necessarily be, in inverted commas, wasteful, because we've got to accept that the geysers must be on all the time during the day, when in fact we need it during particular periods of the day, especially during the peaks. And that's the effort that we want everyone to contribute, not just for their own interest, selfish interest. Perhaps you want to lower your municipal bill, but the totality of those efforts, once we constellate them, we are able to achieve a significant amount of savings. And you go to many parts of the world, I think that's how we are transitioning. So our appreciation...
How are you going to implement that? How do you plan on implementing this to allow for South Africans to be able to control when the geysers should be on and off, when and as they need it?
Well, there are two parts. There is already initiative by private sector. Some of the major residential units, they are already offering that as I speak to you, and then we'll reach out to those units that can't do it. We're going out on the request for information just for us to have an appreciation of, if you like, the lie of the land in relation to the kind of technologies that exist there, because we're technology agnostic. All we want is that it must be able to perform the following function. First, to enable the user to remotely control the geyser, and of course we'll issue an alert to say, please remember to have switched off your geyser. You would have genuinely forgotten, you're in a hurry, just late for work, taking kids to school, and would have forgotten to do that. And of course, with the kind of technology we have, cell phones, you are able to switch it off. So we're going to be rolling out, so we'll take that part of the responsibility, I think, as government. One of the programs we'll be introducing, working with one of the major financiers, and we'll make that known once we have finalized those agreements, the details, is to create that facility to make it possible for people to tap into that facility and make it possible for them to roll out these gadgets. By the way, I mean, our computation, the most that we'll be able to pay, including the component and installation, it's about 3,000 rands. And of course, like I said, you'll see your return on investment on the lowering of your municipal bill. That is in fact less than 5 months for you to recover that in instances where people don't have that kind of money, and I don't want to assume that people do have, because of the kind of financial pressures that households are going through. We will make that facility available so that we are able to roll out, including poorer households. What
if South Africans say, I don't want to, even though I have the money, I don't want to install this?
Well, I think South Africans are genuinely committed to the resolution of this problem.
They didn't put themselves into this problem, though, Minister. So, I mean, I'm speaking from the anger of load shedding, where people are saying, why must I only charge my inverter late in the evening or in the early hours of the morning because Eskom wants to reduce electricity supply? Why must I install a technology that I can control when my geyser should be on and off because Eskom wants us to reduce our electricity supply and pay 3,000 rand?
Then you can make that argument and remain in the dark. That's the point I'm making, that all of us have to come to the picture to resolve it. But the point I'm making is that there's significant savings to the bottom line. So that's the first part. And the second part is that the aggregation of these efforts are going to help us to address the crisis that is confronting us. The third part is that as you transition, part of the transition into a fossil-free future, fuel-free future, it's quite apart from the sources, the fuel sources, renewables, hydro and the like. It's also about us being judicious in the manner in which we are consuming this electricity. Just an appreciation that we consume that which we need at the point that we need it. I think that's the totality of our argument. We have done it in 2010. I think at the height of the Soccer World Cup during the winter, we were able to save 3,200 megawatts. All I'm saying is that if you go to other jurisdictions in the world, especially your most advanced economies that really need to power their growth and development, you find that this solution exists, and in fact, they are prescribed. And it's part of that transition that we are talking about. The point I want to make is that it is through the collective efforts of South Africans that we are going to resolve this. Of course, the primary responsibility sits with government. We are not about to abrogate that responsibility. And that's why when we started the conversation, I was sharing with you the kind of efforts we are making in order to improve the energy availability factor, significant progress that we are making as we enter the height of winter. And as we return those units that I spoke about, Kusile 1, 2, 3, and then also Kusile 5, and we are able to get additional generation capacity on stream, we are going to secure energy sovereignty for our country. And these conversations will be a thing of the past.
Okay, well, we hope so. I have a question here. I want to ask you in terms of how far are you in incentivizing South Africans for going the solar route, because this speaks directly to what you're speaking about, this technology that South Africans need to install into their homes to be able to control their consumption when it comes to geyser use and all of that. Many South Africans are now, if they are privileged enough and able enough to go the solar route, are doing so, really taking off immense pressure from the grid, and also businesses are doing the same thing. Is there a plan to incentivize, and how far is that?
You're absolutely correct. So we're going to do two things. So you're making an important part to say that those that are affluent, privileged enough are able to do that, because these solutions don't come cheap. And of course, the Minister of Finance has introduced a set of incentives, but of course, it's predicated on the assumption that people have got cash to be able to procure those solutions, and or they have got the right risk profile to raise money from the debt capital, commercial banks to be able to install. But it's really a very few cohort of South Africans. And the unintended consequences of that is that there's going to be an inequitable access to this solution. So what we are doing now is to introduce that facility that will make it possible, even for poorer households, to access, if you like, these solutions without placing a burden on them to make upfront capital investments. So we are doing that. Like I said, we're finalizing that. We'll be announcing what those incentives are. The second one really is about working out a framework on what we call either feed-in tariff or what we call net billing. So what that simply means is that once you have installed your solar, there's battery, there's inverter, at points during the day where you consume less than what you are generating, you are able to feed back that into the tariff, into the grid, and then the economy benefits from you feeding into the grid, and then there will be a fee that we get to pay for to you. So you come to, we're repurposing how you're thinking of this. Is no more a cost, but is a revenue generating opportunity as we help us to resolve this challenge. Vietnam has done it over a period of 12 months. They were able to generate 9.5 gigawatts of additional capacity as a result of these incentives. And and we're following on the tracks of what they've been doing. So you see it more as now it's a revenue generating opportunity, and it's less a cost. There's a lot of buildings, rooftop space. We're talking to the South African Property Owners Association just the other day. They've got at their disposal now, as we speak, about 100 square meters, 100 million square meters of rooftop space. And if we were to engage about 50% of that engaging in this instance means rolling out the rooftop solar, we can get, in terms of their own modeling, about 9 gigawatts of additional energy. So we need to provide for that framework that makes it possible for them to feed in. A lot of office parks, Saturday, Sunday, they are not people are not working. We could be benefiting from the electrons that are being generated there. But because of the absence of the framework, we are not benefiting from that. And those are the things that we'll be introducing to ensure that there's resilience in the system going into the future.
Okay, I want to ask you if you can give us a time frame of when load shedding is going to end. And I ask this with a lot of anger and irritation, because if I remember correctly, about 2 years ago, the then CEO had said, no, in about 18 months, this should be over. Look where we are now. President Cyril Ramaphosa, he wasn't president at the time, said back in, I think, 2015, no, in about 18 months, this will be over. It's 16 years later, Minister, and I know you've just been appointed, and I know you're working tirelessly. But South Africans want a timeline. They want a time frame of when they don't have to eat when they're not hungry because the power's going out in 5 minutes, leave for work 2 hours before because all the traffic lights are going to be out, businesses are shutting down. When are we going to see the end of load shedding, the actual end of it? I know you have plans to reduce it significantly by December with Kusile coming back up, but an actual time frame of when we don't have to hear this word load shedding anymore.
Yeah, so I answer that question by saying that I'm in the business of giving you additional megawatts. That those additional megawatts are sufficient to meet the demand is a different conversation. I just shared now with you that the 7 percentage point increase in the energy availability factor, working on 477 megawatts, representing 1 percentage point increase. So you're sitting at about 3,200 additional megawatts that we're bringing on the grid since beginning of May. I just said to you that Kusile 1, 2, 3 that are meant to come, all of them, the last one will be coming on stream 24th of December, the first one the 28th of November. Those three put together, those packs, because they generate 800 megawatts, they give us 2,400 megawatts. And then there's Unit 5 that is going to be fired now in October. It's another 800 megawatts. So collectively, Kusile, we're talking about an additional 3,200 megawatts. I've shared with you around the interventions we're making on the demand side, and we're looking over the next 6 months, the kind of achievement that we want to register as a minimum is 1,000 megawatts. If you add that, now we're at 7,200 megawatts. And then there's Unit 4 that is going to come from Midupi, gives us an additional 800 megawatts. We've been able to truncate the return of that unit from May of 2025. We're bringing it early in April of 2024 because we're buying a second-hand generator somewhere in Netherlands that is about 15 years of age. You might ask the question, why second-hand 15 years of age? These machines are designed to have a lifespan of about 50 years, so we can extract 35 years of productive generation capacity out of that unit. And given the kind of crisis that is confronting us, we cut that period by more than a year, about 13 months. We are bringing on stream much earlier. I just shared with the briefing there, we are getting an additional 80 megawatts from Mozambique. The counterpart is returning the visit. We are meeting on the 12th, I think Monday the 12th. We are finalizing what that is. I suspect that it could be more than just the 80, but what is confirmed is 80 megawatts. They've also confirmed with us in the next 6 months, so by November of this year, they can give us about another 900 megawatts. So if you add those together, the ones that we are sure of, in addition to, I'm not talking about new generation, the 5,000 that solar, combination of solar and wind, because it's also a function of grid connection, getting to financial close. Not talking about the 3,000 megawatts of gas that will be part of bid window number 7. I'm not talking about the 1,200 megawatts of battery storage. The ones that I just shared with you, which stretches until the end of the year. So we're talking over close to 8,000 megawatts. That's what we guaranteed to get to you, 8,000 megawatts. When we did our computation in relation to summer conditions, we're in search of 6,000 megawatts for us to be able to eliminate load shedding. When you talk of winter conditions, you are short of close to 10,000 megawatts. So it's important that we are able to be accountable of the megawatts that we are bringing on stream, and people will see gradually that we're coming down. Of course, the worst of winter is still ahead of us.
Yeah.
We're expecting that to ramp up, but with the improvement in the EAF, we really want to keep it at tolerable stages. But I want to emphasize, load shedding is not tolerable. Whether it's level 1 or level 2, we need to eliminate load shedding. So that's the intention, and I just shared with you the megawatts that we'll be bringing on stream.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's go to a quick ad break. When we return, I want to start speaking about sabotage and what's playing out at our various power stations. So do stay tuned for that.